I want to start with one Sa'if that's I wanted to finish from Siman Reish Zayin, and I'm going to roll into Siman Reish Tes. Siman Reish Zayin, Sa'if Yud Ches. We'll start with the Tur. The Tur writes in the name of his father, the Rosh, and whatever we'll call it, parallel to Sa'if Yud Ches, that if somebody writes a shtar, and on the shtar it says that the shtar choiv, that if you're not going to get paid by this and this time, then you receive a knas. And at the end of the shtar it says udeloike asmachta, which is a standard nusach that's written in the shtar. The question was asked to the Rosh, could you collect this in knas and bezdin? And the Rosh said, being that it's such a clear and outright asmachta, that he was exaggerating to accept upon himself a knas on something which he's not obligated in. It's something which he's not obligated to, and therefore it's a guzme. And therefore, being that it's an asmachta, the only way asmachta works is with a kinyan me'achshav and a bezdin chashuv. The fact that the shtar says the loike asmachta, lo'mayla v'lo'mayla, is garnished. That has no effect whatsoever. Why? Because we see, it's in front of our eyes, that it's an asmachta. The Bach right away explains, what are we talking about? Yeah, and he goes into the discussion that we already spoke about before, that there was a kinyan with me'achshav, not in front of a bezdin chashuv, means 2 out of the 3, that works, or a kinyan and bezdin chashuv, kinyan plus bezdin chashuv without me'achshav, also works. And then afterwards, they write in the shtar, the like asmachta, then it works. But if there was in front of bezdin and me'achshav without a kinyan, it means there was no kinyan done. It doesn't help for an asmachta like we saw from the Alter Rebbe. Why? Because if there's no kinyan, then it doesn't make a difference bezdin chashuv or me'achshav. The kinyan has to be there. But then the Bach continues and he says that again we don't need all 3, which was something which we discussed, that there are many achronim which hold that we should have all 3, kinyan, me'achshav, and bezdin chashuv. The Bach doesn't say that. The Bach says that the way he understands the Rosh is that the kinyan plus 1 works. Either kinyan plus me'achshav or kinyan plus bezdin chashuv works. That's how he understands it. Now the Beis Yosef over here brings from Rabbeinu Yerucham, and Rabbeinu Yerucham brings B'Shem HaGoyin, doesn't say which one of the Goyinim, that if you write the Loika Asmachta, it does work. Not like the Rosh Paskins. And the Beis Yosef that brings it from Rashbam, Rabbeinu Tam Ramban, it seems like the Goyin, that it's enough to write the Loika Asmachta and it works even if you didn't do anything else. But lahalachi paskins like the Rosh, that you have to do something alongside with it, and the writing in a shtar is not enough. Darkei Moshe paskins brings the Beis Yosef lahalacha, that basically doesn't argue with him. The Prisha has an interesting diuk from the Rosh, and he says the fact that the Rosh went and emphasized that the reason that it doesn't work the Loika Asmachta is because it's a guzma and it's a visible asmachta, means that when you have an asmachta which is not a guzma, that means we're not going to think that this is completely out of this world. Then writing the Loika Asmachta and the shtar would work. That means only in something which is unreasonable, it's not going to work. Something which is reasonable, even if it's davar she'eino chayav by, something which you're not obligated, it still would work. That's a precious medayik from the Rosh. In Shulchan Aruch, the Mechaber paskins like the Rosh. Dachin Beis Yosef, he explains why he does not like the Shitta which disagrees with the Rosh, and he paskins like the Rosh. Shulchan Aruch, he says the same thing. And the Ramah adds that even though yesh chalkim on the Rosh, still no, and therefore, being that according to the Rosh, writing delay asmachta does not work. Therefore, Meitzim Chavero Varayim, Bezdin cannot use this shtar to say that to collect on this asmachta. The Taz adds over here and says, well, we have a way around it. What does the Taz say? If you write the shtar in such a way that you write that we did it be'inyan or be'oifen she'ein bo asmachta, not udelei asmachta. He says we did everything be'oifen she'ein bo asmachta. Lav dafka did a kininim b'fnei bezdin chashuv or whatever they did, but they wrote in the shtar we did it in a way that's not asmachta. In such a case, it works. Why? Medinai das baldin, being that I am moide, that we did it in such a way that asmachta is not gonna, that you can't have asmachtas, then it already works. And the Knesset, yeah. And the Knesset Agdel and the Goy Satur Ois Kuf Chof brings from the Ranach something similar. Also, that if you write in the shtar, V'loi uchal lehipoter b'shum tainas asmachta. He doesn't write, I did it in a way that there's no asmachta, but he writes, I am telling you that this shtar is written in such a way that I'm waiving all claims of asmachta, and I'm telling you that I cannot become potter with any tainas asmachta. That also works. He doesn't explain it mitam midin hodas baldin, but it's the same logic. Huh?
He doesn't even give any reason.
No, but that's the logic behind it, based on the same as the Taz. If you write such a thing, if you don't write the delay asmachta, when you write the delay asmachta, you're just writing whatever it says in the shtar and you don't understand what it says. But if you write in the shtar, according to the Taz, we did it in a way that there's no asmachta, or according to the Ranach, we did it in a way that I can no longer claim asmachta, then that is part of the shtar, that is a Tanai, and that works.
What's the best way to take away this problem of asmachta?
Kinyan, Bezdin Chashuv, Me'achshav, and write that this was done in a way that there's no asmachtas, and I cannot be potter with any tainas asmachta. Put everything in. Roll the whole thing in. Roll the whole stack in. But today, when you have a computer, it doesn't hurt. Just make it.
What about the basic chashuv? How are we going to be knowing the basic chashuv to make a whole stack?
The Alter Rebbe says that if I write that it's b'fnei bezdin chashuv, even if there's no bezdin chashuv, it still works. So Alter Rebbe writes that. All you need is a kinyan me'achshav. That's all you need. You need a kinyan me'achshav and put all the l'sheinas in. If there's no kinyan, you have a problem. But if you make a kinyan and then you write a shtar, that's all you need. You just have to stick in as much as possible into the shtar. Now, why does the Rashbam and Rabbeinu Tam and Ramban, they all hold that if I write the leika asmachta, it does work? Yeah, they disagree on the Rosh. Well, they were before the Rosh. What I'm saying is that logic of the people that hold that it does work, because still now we're discussing why it doesn't work. What's the logic if it does work? They simply say, if I write something in a shtar, that means I was gomar vehikna based on this shtar. Whatever it says in the shtar, I accepted. The fact that I signed a piece of paper that says the leika asmachta means in my mind I was gomar vehikna completely, and that's why I wrote the leika asmachta. I don't have to do anything other than that. Since the logic of asmachta is that there was no gomar vehikna, so if I write the leika asmachta, means I was gomar vehikna, and I understood it's not going to be an asmachta. So I could taina asmachta. By me signing it, I waive that claim of asmachta. So,
again, all these dreidels, gambling, etc.
Yeah.
If you make a kinyan me'achshav based on chashuv, and then play dreidel again, is that fine?
Probably dreidel games, you don't need it according to the
Big money.
thousands of dollars.
Even hundreds of dollars.
Depends for who. Yeah. So yeah, you make a kinyan based on chashuv. We sign a shtar that we're going to right now. We're mekabel upon ourselves. We're going to be oisek in something which is not yeshuva shalaylam, and we're mekabel in front of the bezdin chashuv. We're going to be violating something which the Gemara says we shouldn't do. And now what became we're doing it because we are shkotzim, but we're doing it the right way. Shake it with the hechsher. Ah? Echte shkotzim. Ah?
We have another onus. It's not like
All right. Now, today there's another trick. which is that you write in the shtar, and I saw it in the shtaras that are written today, and I also put it into shtaras because it works, that the shtar is going to be valid even according to das yachid, even if I find a das yachid that's machshir the shtar, even if the Rebbe Paiskim disagree with it. Your mekabel bekinyan, that we're going to follow das yachid, that's going to make the shtar strongest. The Mechaber says it doesn't work. The Rosh says it doesn't work. The Smeg explains it doesn't work. The Siva says it doesn't work. The Alter Rebbe says it doesn't work. But I'm writing in a shtar that if I'm going to find one person in the Eitzar HaChachma that it works, it works. Kimli like das yachid. I'm a kabel bekinyan, gomer agav sudar in front of a bezin chashuv, that this shtar is going to be valid according to whichever opinion. And I write the like Asmekhtã without doing anything else. And it's a clear Asmekhtã.
So that's not makes that effective?
Huh?
That clause makes it.
They write it. Could you say or not? So mitzad echad you could say it works, right? Because you're mekabel, you're moide. I'm not being mekabel a kinyan on the transaction. The transaction is mekabel a kinyan. I'm making a second kinyan, so to speak, on my choice of law. Like if I write, let's say if I write a regular shtar and I write this is according to Shulchan Aruch Sif Kach V'Kach, Mechaber Sif Kach V'Kach, or according to the Shach that writes Kach V'Kach. That's my Kabbalah, right? So if I write the Kabbalah the Das Yachid, does it work or doesn't it work? So Misvara should work, right? Let's think for a second about it. There's a Kesef HaKotcher. It's in the back of the book, the end of the Siman. Kesef HaKotchim is the end of the book, and the end of the Siman is there's a bunch of little things. One of the things that he mentions is like so. The nitva, that means the person who owes money, gives a blank piece of paper with a signature on the bottom to the malva or to whoever the other party is, and he tells him, here's a shtar, here's my signature, write the details that we have, and put in all the nuschos. I'm not a baki in Shulchan Aruch. All the nuschos that you need to stick in there, stick into there. That's what he tells him. He says, go ahead, you're free to go. And he says, this is the lashon of the Kesef HaKotchim, Pshita, sheyesh lodin b'zeh. It's simple that we're confused about it. Lefi ma she'achosim yidei minimusi shtoles v'chizukim. How much we have to be done, how much the person who says put everything in knows about what he asked to be put in. If he knows everything and he says just write it in because I'm not interested, it's one thing. If he says write it in because I have no idea, something else. Instead it's tzarechil. So if a person puts into the shtaris that he goes to a Rav and writes shtaris, and the Rav sticks into the like Asmekhtã and this, and there's every Shiyah das Yachid, and this guy doesn't know that there's a das Yachid, doesn't even know how to search for the das Yachid, even if he wanted to, because he doesn't know how to use Eitzar HaChachma or Google. Does it work or not? According to Kesef HaKotchim, it's tzarechil. Yeah. Do we say Gomer v'hikna to be mevatel all the Asmekhtãs based on the das Yachid he's completely not aware of? Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe according to the Ra'anach, maybe it works. Because the Ra'anach's logic is that if I write that I cannot become potter by any taina, then it works. So that is a very open-ended statement. It's the same thing as saying, Kimli Kedas Yachid. Yeah, same thing, because what do you mean, I don't know all the tainas shabayil. But according to Ra'anach, it might work. According to Kesef HaKotchim, it's tzarechil. Yeah, let's...
Even if there can be no das yachid.
Right.
That's real. Here, it's only das yachid, but what if there's no das yachid?
Then taka works. Then it's bottle.
Right, so I'm saying maybe shalei pater and kol taina means even greater.
It's greater, that's what I'm saying, and for sure it will work, yeah. The Mishpat Shalom over here brings an interesting thing from the Marashdam, as follows, that if you write in the shtar, V'choymer v'choyzik shtar zeh. Kibel olav, pleni kechoymer v'choyzik ol shtar zeh nehige b'Yisrael deleka asmachta. He doesn't just write deleka asmachta. He writes a nusach that I'm a kabel. We put this into the shtaris also. We put everything into it. We write in the shtar that I'm a kabel by myself that it's this shtar is as strong as any shtar which is written in Bnei Yisrael, which doesn't says deleka asmachta. That also works. The Kuli Alma, he says. He says the Kuli Alma, the Marashdam says. When you write that this shtar is as strong as any shtaris in Bnei Yisrael, which are the Leika Asmachta and the Leika this and the Leika that, then it works. The Kuli Alma. He says, why? Because you're mekabel upon yourself that this shtar is going to have the strongest power possible.
Is that what you do the time?
Ah?
Is that what you do the time, right? That's the whole story is the Hebrew.
Today we write that, yeah. A regular shtar today has like 6 lines in Hebrew on the bottom. Everything is stuck into the last 6 lines. In Hebrew. You write a whole shtar in English to 15 pages and the last paragraph is in Hebrew. If it doesn't understand, don't sign it. In America, if I sign a contract, there's in New York, you have to put four things into it. Yeah? And now you put the 4 things in and you sign it even though you don't do it. It says, I had a chance to read and understand it. I had a chance to review it with an attorney. I had a chance to make sure this. I had a chance to do this. 4 things. You put that into a shtar, and then you can come to court later and say, I didn't have a chance to review with an attorney. The guy sat me in the office and told me I have 5 minutes to sign or I'm going to be dead. And unless you prove otherwise, you signed a paper that says I had a chance to review with your attorney. I had a chance to review it. I had a chance to think about it. I had a chance to do everything. Same logic. I am mekabel upon myself that this shtar is going to be the best possible shtar. Yeah, with that I finish Siman Reish Zayin. I just want to point this out about the דיני shtaris to wrap up Siman Reish Zayin. Let's move to Reish Tes. Reish Tes discusses Kinyan in a davar she'eino mesuyim and davar shlei b'laylam. Davar she'eino mesuyim is a Kinyan on something which is not defined. Davar shlei b'laylam is something which is not in existence yet. And it touches upon the dinim of Eino a little bit, and we're going to talk about mainly Sif Aleph and Beis, a little bit of Gimel, which is Davar She'eino Mesuyim, and not so much about Davar She'eino Olam. That's going to be Mitzvah Shem next year. The Tur, and whatever we'll call it parallel to Sif Aleph and Beis, opens the Siman by bringing the Rambam. What does the Rambam say? If I sell something which is Eino Mesuyim, Davar She'eino Mesuyim, Davar She'eino Mesuyim means undefined, something which is not defined, not identified. Yeah, and, UFO is unidentified flying object. This is but in a sale, something which is unidentified. Nothing. There was no defined and identified object. The Rambam says sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. If the type is defined, but the quantity is not defined, or the weight is not defined, but you define the type. Like for example, I tell you, I sell you all the wine that's in my basement. And I don't tell you how many barrels of wine I have in the basement. I say, all the wine's in the basement. It works. Why? Because it is a davar mesuyim. It's defined. It's partially defined, partially identified. Wine in my basement. Identify the product, identify the location. I didn't identify how much, and I didn't identify the weight or the quantity of the barrels or the capacity, but I identified something. And therefore the Kinyan schal on that already. Something else. That's a דיני mekachtos. That's a separate conversation. The mekachtos conversation. If all the wine is not wine, then it's nothing. I sell you wine in my basement and you end up going there and there's no wine. What does it mean? I sold you nothing. So the Rambam says it works even if afterwards when you make a calculation, it's less or more than what either of them were thinking about in their mind. Why? Because a guy who wants to buy, he says, I'm selling you my basement that's full of wine. So I know math. I sit and make a cheshbon. Okay, this guy's house is 20 by 60. So there's 1,200 square feet, minus a foot off on each side. So that's 1,100 square feet. The height of an average basement is 7 feet. The size of every barrel is kach v'kach. He has to be able to walk in and out. Make a cheshbon is a certain there's a certain amount of barrels in the basement that could fit in the basement. And he gives me a price, and I say, based on this cheshbon, it comes out that each barrel is charging me $200. It makes sense. From each barrel, I can make money. And the seller also doesn't know how many barrels there are over there because he's been storing them. In his mind, he thinks that there is less barrels in the basement. And he thinks he's making $300 off a barrel. The buyer thinks that he's paying $200 a barrel. The Maisa ends up being that it's nish tazay. There's less barrels than the buyer thought. There's more barrels than the seller thought. Or the other way around. Still works. Why? Because there was a davar mesuyim, even though the numbers don't match what you thought when you did the kinyan, you both agreed to enter into the transaction, and there was a mesuyim, and it works. Elamai.
Wine has a standard price.
Elamai, there's shaykh to have דיני or no, which you're going to get to soon. The concept of no does apply here. How and where does it apply? Something else. Now, what happens if I don't even define the type? I just say I'm selling you whatever's in my basement. So even if there was a kinyan, and even if the keach is maskim and the moicher is maskim, it doesn't work. Why? Because there's absolutely no smichus das in the keach. He has nothing to hang his hat on and say what I did. And it's mamash like mesachik v'kuvya. That's the lashon that he uses. That's the Tur brings the name of the Rambam. The same thing is in the Mechaber over here, Sefer Aleph and Beis. Comes the Beis Yosef and says, I don't understand the Rambam. There's a Gemara in Perek Ezeu Neshech, where a person comes to his friend and says, I'm selling you everything that my cow is going to give milk. All the milk my cow is going to give. He says, no. Even if it's more than what you paid. Why is that? So over here he asks, why does the Rambam over here says Pshitas that there is a no? If I sell a cow, if I sell all the milk that my cow is going to give today, and it ends up being more than the value, because let's say a liter of milk or a gallon of milk is going to cost $5 in wholesale, yeah? And this cow, usually a cow would give, when I saw it was 12 liters, 13 liters every run, it's about 3 gallons. Sometimes it could be a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less, but this cow is a gezumta cow, and it gave 6 gallons. So it's much more. Or faket only gave 1 gallon. It was hungry. It didn't eat properly that day. And there's no ino, the Gemara says. So that's the Rambam. How could the Rambam say over here that the moicher, whatever's in the house, all the barrels in the house, all the wine in the house, there is a no. So still to the Gemara. So the Beis Yosef says no. The Rambam is talking about when there is a davar sheyesh l'shar kavua and it has a set price. If it has a set price, like wine, then there's a no. Milk doesn't have a set price. Then today's faket. Today milk has a set price and wine doesn't. But then it was faket. And therefore, there's no ino. Dr. Moshe disagrees and Beis Yosef says it makes no sense that the ino only applies when there's a shar kavua or not. There's a ino everything. Elamai, what the Gemara says that there's no ino by the milk, is obviously the Gemara is talking about a case when you made a calculation, it's a little bit more. Not that there is no ino. If there is no ino, if there is no ino. That's what he says, the Gemara says. That's the Moshe disagrees with him. The Bach also disagrees with the Beis Yosef and says it's not shaykh to say so. He says why? Because when it comes to selling a cow, a behemoth doesn't have a shari yadua, doesn't have a clear, defined price. Why? Because every behemoth is different. You could have 3 cows in front of you. They all look similar. Every cow is going to be sold for a different price. You cannot have a shar kavua for cows. There's a cow which weighs more, cow gives more milk, cow gives less milk. A cow that has more yichus, today cows could be totally different price. A cow that was grass-fed, a cow that was stuffed, and there's so many different variables that you cannot have a behemoth that has, at least for retail, for one person buying a cow, it's going to be the same. The price is almost like a sregim. Not as much as a sregim, but almost like a sregim. And over there, the Rambam clearly says there is a no. So how can you say that something which does not have a shar kavua, according to the Rambam, has no ino? It clearly says faket. Therefore, the Bach says, according to the Rambam, there's a no on everything. Even if the shad is not Yadua. And the Gemara is not talking about Eina Bichlal. The Gemara is talking about Ribis. The Gemara is telling you that even if you paid more, there's no Ribis. That's what he says. That's how he explains it. Also disagrees. The Taz over here, also now, just by the way, when you look at Taz, it's printed in the Shulchan Aruch, but if you, L'cha'ira, it was written as a chibur on the Torah when it comes to Mispat, not like in Erechaim and Yeridea. Erechaim and Yeridea was clearly written as a chibur on the Mechaber. Mispat, I think that it was written as a chibur on the Torah based on the style of the way it's written. And the Taz explains that he doesn't understand Bechal the Kasha the B'Siyesef. What Kasha do you have Bechal? He says, obviously the Rambam is talking about a case that there is no, not shaykh to have Eino. But if there is shaykh to be Eino, according to Allah, then obviously there's Eino. Like a Moshe. And then he continues and he says, now I don't understand why people are Bechal getting complicated about it. This whole thing is only according to the Rambam, who holds that Kinyan doesn't work for Asmechtã like Mesachik Bekuvia doesn't work a Kinyan. But according to us that hold like Rabbeinu Tam, that Asmechtã, that there's no Asmechtã when neither of the parties know anything, like Mesachik Bekuvia, and therefore when there is nothing to be Seimech Das on, so it's obviously no Asmechtã, and there is a Gmilus Das Lahaknois, therefore also by milking a cow, where both of them have no idea what's going on, and both of them are not going to ever know what's going on. Also there's no Asmechtã. And it's a Kinyan that works. That's why the Gemara says there's no Asmechtã. Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't work. Only the Ramah brings it. It's Machlekes. The Rambam. That's the Mashal. The Tur brings it. Not Tur, the B'Siyesef mentions it. The Shach also disagrees in the B'Siyesef, and he holds like the Bach. A very interesting Shevet HaLevi. Chuvas Shevet HaLevi, who he explains Chelik Hey Siman Reish Yud Ches, where he gives a beautiful definition to the Machlekes between, we'll call it Bach and B'Siyesef. Really, it's two teams, but it's the Bach and the B'Siyesef, whether there's a no in something which has a Shar Kavua or not. Or there's a no also in something which does not have a Shar Yadua. And he says, let's analyze it. The B'Siyesef and the Bach are all talking about something like behemoths, or like milk, or like everything. That means something which potentially could have a no later. That means if I buy a cow, I could bring it afterwards to a cow professional, and he'll tell me how much it's worth. In the market, there's no shar kavua, but there still is a no because there's a set value to it. Somewhat, there's a set value to it. Not a perfect value, but there is a scale to define how much it's worth. It's not nothing. So according to the B'Siyesef, I know if there's no shar kavua shebashuk now, there's no I know. I know cannot apply to something which later I'm going to be able to find out what's going to happen. According to the Bach and everybody else, no, as long as I could find out later by a professional the value, there is I know until later. I know I could come back later. Comes the Shevet HaLevi out of this with an interesting gedank, which comes out from the explanation of the Shar HaLevi. It's not clear in the Shar HaLevi, but comes out of the gedank. Something which is not shaykh to even calculate by a professional, something which is sold based on moods. You know, you have certain things you could buy, used books. Yeah, big thing. Everybody's talking about it. Is there? There's no. Used books. Whoever is on WhatsApp groups knows about it. Balagan on these things. There's no. A set collectibles. Whether it's mashke, whether it's books, whether it's esregim. It's not collectibles, but esregim also they sell it based on how much esregim there are and what they look at you. It used to be at least like that.
It's basically the point of people want to take.
The set of Zdei Chemed that's printed by the Rebbe. Tafshin Tes, Tafshin Yud. How can you define Shar Shev? There's no Shar Shev B'Shuk, and there's no way to define it. Because the value of it is whatever someone's going to be willing to pay for it. You look in auctions in the last 2-3 years, there's some sets sold for $400, some sets sold for $800, some sets for $1,500. The same exact set. And you can't say that it's because one of them, the cover is a little bit bent. That's not the reason why it's sold. The market is whatever it is. So if you explain the machlekes of the Bach and the Beis Yosef, that it's based on whether, that according to the Bach, Oino applies if you could find out later. Something which you cannot find out later, even according to the Bach and the Ramah and everybody else who holds like the Bach is still not going to be Oino. That's from the way the Shevet HaLevi defines the machlekes, which I found a very interesting way of defining the machlekes, the way the Shevet HaLevi puts it. Good hagdara for the machlekes. A lot of nafka. That's the main nafkamina that could come out from this definition. Anything which does not have, which cannot be, which its value is determined by how much people are going to be willing to pay for it. Auctions, yeah. Art, everything.
Any auction.
There could be something. There could be a book. I'm telling you, I have old Sfarim in my house, which I paid $50 for a sefer in auction. And I picked it up in Eretz Yisrael. I didn't want to pay $20 for shipping when I was in Eretz Yisrael. I just left it there. When I went, I picked it up a half a year later. $50. And that same sefer sold, it was in Tov Kuf Zayin print. It was sold 2 years later from a different thing, not as high quality as me, for $500.
So you could sell it for like $1,000.
I'm not looking to sell it. I actually want the book. Why should I sell it? And I don't sell books. Anything I don't want in the house, I dump in Kerler and some empty. But that's a separate. That's me personally. What I'm saying is, what I know are you going to say over there? Is there a no on me? Do I have now to go back to the seller and tell him that, hey, I underpaid you? Could the next guy who bought it for $500 go to his seller and say, Shuch, I paid $50 for it, you ripped me off? No. And there's no professional who will be able to tell you how much it's worth. Even the professionals are guessing. They'll look at the auctions and they'll determine a range.
These are things which don't have values.
They don't have value. So that's why, according to the way the Shevet HaLevi explains it, it's not going to be a no. Even according to the Lashon V'yesha no, B'chol Inyan doesn't mean B'chol Inyan. Now, back to the thing. The Sivis also says that there's no kasha.
But are you saying there's no possible, let's say you look at the
No
markets
possible.
now, and there is what people are...
There's a range.
There's a range.
There's a range that the range is based on what people paid for.
So if it's outside of the range, there is a no.
No, because you'll put it on the auction house and then you're going to have a Meshugana who wants specifically that sefer because his bar mitzvah boy, he's a gvid, and his bar mitzvah boy told him, I want to have this sefer. I want to have a Tanya that Rebbe gave out on this and this day. He'll go and he'll hike up the price as much as possible because that's what he wants. Be $10,000, $20,000.
So even if you buy something out of the range of what the market is...
Yeah, because the range is not a real range. It's not a value range. It's a range, a historical range of what it was.
Pure demand. Okay.
Yeah. Now, by the way, the Sivis goes and says, all your kashas on the Beis Yosef, back to the first in the Sivis, Be'urin Sivkot Nalav says, all the kashas in the Beis Yosef are, I don't understand what everybody's arguing about. The story of the milk, the reason is there's nothing, it's a Davar Shel B'El Olam. I don't understand why you guys are all getting all confused about the story. Forget about it. No, it's a Davar Shel B'El Olam. There's no kinyan B'chlal. And therefore, B'chal don't have to talk about it. No, the Gemara says, Ein Boi Dina no, because there was nothing to begin with. There's no kinyan, it's Davar Shel B'El Olam. So, fight about it. Like, how is the Beis Yosef making a stira from something which is B'El Olam, Davar Shel B'El Olam? Just leave it. You have a much bigger problem over here than kinyan. Now, this is all based on the first thing that the Bach wrote. Right? I started with the Bach. Now, the Bach continues and says, another kasha. Why does the Rambam say it's like Masachik B'Kuvia? Not why does the Rambam say. We know why the Rambam says it. Why does the Tur bring these words from the Rambam? The Tur holds like Rabbeinu Tam and like the Rosh that Masachik B'Kuvia is Gomer V'Hikna. So you want a paskin like the Rambam end it 4 words earlier without the words just right, have Asmechtã, end the story. So he says over here it's different. He says over here, who is the one who is gambling, so to speak? Only the buyer. The seller knows what he has in the house. The buyer has no idea what's in the house. So when you sell a basement full of wine, the seller knows. What's inside the house, sorry, not the basement full of wine. When I sell you a full house, and I sell you a house, everything that's in the house, then it's not, then I know what's in the house, I live there. You don't know what's in the house. So it's only one side doesn't know. You don't know, I do know. So it's a mesachek bekuvya l'tzad echad. Only one side of mesachek bekuvya. You have no idea what you're getting yourself into, I do. What I'm getting you in. So there's no gamar v'hikno. It's like a mesachek bekuvya, but only to the element that, to explain to you that it's like a mesachek bekuvya, that if both would not know, then it would be like mesachek bekuvya, but here, because only one knows, it's not like mesachek bekuvya, and it's still a asmechtã. That's how the Bach convolutes it a little bit. The Prisha says, let's go so much simpler. Take the Rambam holds that even mesachek bekuvya, you're not koine. He's medayeket from the Rambam, the Prisha is medayeket from the Rambam, like it's not so clear in the Rambam, the Prisha is medayeket from the Rambam, mesachek bekuvya is not kinyan. Therefore you don't have a kasha on the Rambam bichlal, why he wrote it. You want to have a kasha on the Torah that holds the mesachek bekuvya, you are koine. And over here he brings from the Rambam faket, you have no kasha, you have no kasha. Over here according to the Torah he's not koine, why? Because, he says, because we're talking about a very unique case. Who's ready to sell a house, everything that's in the house, without any calculations? Somebody who's rich. And he's known in the community. That's the case that we're talking about over here. And the lekeach samchadaitei. The lekeach gets an offer. You're getting now an offer to buy everything that's in this address. He thinks to himself, how Gvir lives over there. There's some silver stuff, there's a heavy stuff, a silver stuff, old tzvarim, maybe carpets I could resell up, something which is worth money. So he's soymech daitay on that. There's going to be a lot in the rich person, but he has no way of knowing what's there. So therefore, it's a one-way smichus das. He's toilet on something, and therefore it's not kaina. He says that's the first teretz. And then he says, nah, I prefer the Bach's teretz. Then he goes back and says, no, the Bach's teretz is better. That by mesachek bekuvya, both of them have same amount of lack of knowledge, and over here, one side knows, one side doesn't. Therefore, over here, even according to the Rambam, even according to the Torah, you are not koine. Now, we mentioned that what does the Torah / the Mechaber, in the first case that they say that even though there is a kinyan, when I sell a basement full of wine, there is a kinyan, but there is a no. Comes the Smeh right away and tells you, go take a look in Siman Reish Chav Zayin, see if you test. What's Siman Reish Chav Zayin? Reish Chav Zayin is the first Siman of Hilchos Sheino. Over there, the Ramah, the Smeh tells you, go look at what the Ramah wrote over there, and go look at what I wrote on the Ramah over there. What's over there? In Siman Reish Chav Zayin, see if you test, the Mechaber says, if I go over to a seller and I give him a bag of cash without counting, a bag of coins, a stack of bills, or to buy, let's say, I see a box of apples, and I go to him, I give him a bag of coins, say, I'm buying the bag of apples from you. Or faket, I count the cash, but I don't count the apples. I say, I'm giving you $100, I'm taking this case of apples. And the box, and I don't know how many apples there, how much it weighs, nothing. The kinyan is a kinyan, the Mechaber says a kinyan is a kinyan, and there is a no if afterwards you'll find out that there is a no. There is a no. And then there must, there is a no.
He says I'm selling you everything. It means he's selling this guy for like a cheap price or to buy everything? Or?
Whatever, one of them didn't count. Then nobody paid attention to counting. Comes the Ramah in the name of the Torah, who says the name of the Rosh, and he says the Suffolk. The Suffolk if there's a no or not. We're not moitzi from the person who did the no. That means whichever one did the no, we can't be moitzi from. Not if the person who got apples got more apples than he's supposed to. Not from the seller if he got more cash than he's supposed to, when it's not, one side didn't count. And the smell over there, Sifkot Lamed Daled, on that Ramah, Siman Reish Chav Zayin, asks a question. Over here, you Rama, you bring the Tur and the Rosh, there's a suffix if we say no or not. Why don't you mention it in Siman Reish Tes? In Reish Tes, the Mechaber writes, Yesh no, when it's in such a thing. Why do you remind yourself to put it in Hilchis Eino and you forgot to put it in Siman in the place, the first place that the Mechaber mentions it? Not only you, the Rama, have the same question on the Tur. The Tur also should have written it, and he didn't. And he says, no, the Rama and the Tur Take don't disagree over here. And there's Take no suffix. Why? Because there's a regular way, at least in those days, to buy fruits without counting one by one. That means, what are they talking about in Siman Reish Chof Zayin? They're only disagreeing on when I gave cash without counting. Not when I took fruits without counting. When I took cash without counting, when I gave cash without counting, that is not the normal way of doing things. Normal way is a set price. It doesn't make a difference. We set a price, me and you, or buyer or seller, we set a price and we go with it. The second half, to buy a case of apples, it's standard. Wholesale, or even before Pesach, you buy a case of apples, you don't count how many apples are in there. Whatever it is, one apple less, one apple more, whatever it is machnas shtais. It doesn't go by weight, it goes by case. But when it comes to coins, nobody buys like, oh, I'm giving you a stack of bills. Everybody counts. Because you could put 100 on the top and 100 on the bottom and a bunch of ones in the middle. Or forget, put the one and a couple of hundreds in the middle. You don't know what you're getting yourself into. So there's no such thing by business. That is where the Tur and the Rama, where the Tur and the Rama have an issue with. Whether there's a no or not. If you're giving not exact money. If you're giving a pack of bills without counting, a bag of coins without counting.
So then he should count.
Huh? He didn't count. He just said, I'm giving you a bag and give me that box of apples. So that's why over there, there's a shaila if there's a no or not. Over here, that it's the way of doing business to buy products without a cheshbon, then it's not a problem. And the Taz over there doesn't like it, and he says, I don't like this thing, and he says, I don't understand you smell how you make such a differentiation. And he says it's much simpler to say that the Rosh and the Rama disagree on the Mechaber over there, and disagree on the Mechaber over here. And have a suffix over here also. Elamai, they don't have to bother writing in the Siman Reish Tes. Reish Tes is talking about a kinyan, not about Eino. Eino is the Mechaber just stuck it in there as to complete the sentence. So they don't have to argue about it. They don't have to mention anything. They'll just tell you, you get to Siman Reish Chof Zayin, we'll start learning Eino, and in a month or two from now, you'll get to Eino, then you'll learn it over there. Nobody's paskening Eino from דיני Kininim. So therefore, there's nothing to worry about. That's what there is in Siman Reish Chof Zayin. So according to the Taz, here also, there's a machlokes Taz and Smeh in Reish Chof Zayin, whether the Rama and the Tur agree with the concept that there is a no, in this case, bichlal a no, or not. Maybe it's a suffix. Maybe it's not a suffix. Maybe it's not a suffix. According to the Taz, there is a suffix here also. According to the Smeh, there's no suffix over here. And the Tur and the Rama hold for sure there's a no. Now, the Mechaber also mentions, this is something which the Tur writes, that if I buy a house, the full house, without knowing what's inside the house, it's not a kinyan, just like Mesachek B'Kovia. Yeah, we already mentioned what the Bach wrote about the Bach and the Prisha. The Smeh over here also brings what he already wrote in the Prisha. He says that even though the Tur disagrees on the Rambam, that there's no Mesachek, that by Mesachek B'Kuvi there's no Asmechtã. Over here it's not so. He repeats the same thing as he wrote in the Prisha, because over here the seller knows, the buyer does not know, and therefore it's an Asmechtã. So if it's a one-sided knowledge, it's an asmachta. If both sides don't know about it, then it's not an asmachta. That comes in the Sivis and says, what happens if the seller also does not know what's inside there? Based on the way the Smeh explains it, both don't know, so it's not asmachta. If the seller has no idea what he's selling and the buyer has no idea what he's buying, then there's no asmachta. That's in the Sivis Chidushim Sivkot and Beis. The Shach disagrees on this man. He holds there's no such a thing. It's asmachta in in everything. Whether one side knows and one side doesn't, or both sides don't know, when selling, in this case of selling a house, it's considered an asmechtã in everything. The shach, sifkat and beis. Yep, in this case. And that Pischei Tshuva brings in it. Right, because you don't know what's in there, and he doesn't know what's in there, but you thought there's something there. Yeah, and this is explained more in the Pischei Tshuva. Yeah, the Pischei Tshuva explains it more. And he says, according to the Shach, he develops it. Even if the Meicher does not know what's inside, there is no asmechtã. Mata Shimon goes into a whole discussion about it. I'm not going to get into it now. Now, what comes out of it? Yeah, the Maisa, there's certain sales which come out. For example, there's people who buy full lots of returns of Amazon returns. Buy full lots of Amazon returns.
What does that mean?
Amazon, when they get returns, they don't deal with them. They have no patience for it. They ship containers to these companies, they sell it for very cheap. You don't know what you're getting. You could be getting Metzias, you could be getting Idus or Ziburis. You could be getting computers that were used once and the guy didn't like them, or you could be getting cell phones that got dropped from that were used for a sword match. You have no idea what you're getting in there. But it's all returns in a trailer. They sell them by containers. A container of electronics, a container of this. They do. That's how they make money. Amazon sells it to this guy. Let's say there's people who have a third party. I have a business, and that's how I buy returns straight from it. Now, I'm a wholesaler,
But Amazon making half the product that they sell it to you.
They don't care. It costs more for them to go through the whole thing of reprocess and sell it again at a discount as an open box than to do it. They prefer you do it and you sell it as an open box, and they'll make money from you later more. Yeah, and that's one kind of business. Another kind of business is people who own storage. They have an empire of a bunch of places like that. Places. Now what happens? I pay storage $35, $40 a month, whatever it is. Let's say that's how much it is. $50 a month for a storage unit. And then I don't pay for 3 months or 6 months. The storage unit takes possession. That's the deal. That's the contract. Takes possession of everything that's in the unit, and they sell it. But they also don't deal with, a lot of times they don't deal with the sales. They just sell the storage unit as is. They make an auction, and it's mamish like a blind, like a game. And people bid. People who are mumchim, they bid on the units. And there's a whole cheshbon. There's people who think they're mumchim and they like it. The rich people, they dafka want to buy, dafka rent these ones and not that ones, the ones that are taller, the ones that are smaller. So we're probably going to find better things in this one, that, and they bid higher and lower based on that. But it's all mamish, you have no idea what's inside. Not the seller and not the buyer. Amazon doesn't know what's inside there. They didn't make a cheshbon. The buyer doesn't know what he's getting. The storage, the seller didn't open up the place. He doesn't even bother breaking the lock. He just tells you, you buy it, this is yours. Whatever's inside it is. Over there, the seller and the buyer both have zero idea what's inside there. So according to the Shach, and the Pischei Tshuva, and the Nesivus, and the Chavasir, which is brought in the Pischei Tshuva, still considered an asmechtã. Yeah, because the buyer is Seimach Das, that he's going to find something valuable in there. He's not going to, if he thinks that this storage unit is filled with confetti or with last year's Esrogim, he's not going to buy it. He obviously feels something there, so there is still an asmechtã there, even though both have no idea. According to the Smith, it's not an asmechtã. It's not an asmechtã. And we see it every day. That's how business is done. So Muslims are that the American system follows the Smith, passing like the Smith. Yeah, maybe it's Setumta, whatever it is. But soon I'm going to bring later. We're going to see what from the Mishpat Shalom, something connected to it. We'll get to it soon.
Would you apply the Chusudina in this case?
You could say the Chusudina.
You could, even though it's negative?
Why is it negative? You can't say.
In other words, could I be a buyer for
Yeah. Because you could say like the Smeh. The Smeh is big enough to rely on him. It's not a more.
If a random tweet and you'll tell them you can do it or something?
Yeah. Tell him to put in the shtar, all the 6 lines.
No, I'm trying to say that you don't have that stuff.
By Yidden, if you do it to Yidden, tell him put in the shtar, the whole thing. Put the 6 lines that solve all the Asmechtã problems. And make a kinyan. The Knesset Agdela, the first Knesset Agdela on this simon, brings from the name of his teacher. Let's go back to the beginning of the simon. Davar she'eino mesuyim. Yeah, mechira by davar she'eino mesuyim. If there's no definition whatsoever, it doesn't work. Comes against Agdel and tells you, before you start the simon, before you start this topic, just know this only applies to mechira, because mechira you need das makna das kaina. By a matana, it's not so. I could tell you, and that's minhag Yisrael. You give a matana, it's wrapped in the thing. You have no idea what you're getting. Sometimes I have no idea what I'm giving either, because my wife bought the present, wrapped it up, and I am bringing it to bar mitzvah. So I have no idea what I'm giving. Yeah, so there's neither of them. It's not a problem. It's davar she'eino mesuyim in the box. No, there's nothing. It's not a problem. By matana. Now, there's an interesting Mata Shimon. Agos Atur Oisvav brings the name of the Marikash. We went through that if somebody says, I'm selling you everything that's in this house, it's a davar she'eino mesuyim, and there is no kinyan, and it's not chal b'chlal, it's an asmachta. The Marikash says, what happens if I make some sort of a definition? Not a full definition, like all the barrels of wine, all this. Make a very light definition. I say all the movable things in the house. Anything you can carry from the house, I'm selling you. That's already a defined term. Anything which is not connected to the walls, you can take. Yeah, I'm selling you. That already works. He says, once you define metaltalin, it's already mesuyim. It's already mesuyim by something, by a thread, but it's mesuyim. And therefore works for making a kinyan. The same thing if he tells him, everything that's in the sack, everything that's in this box, it's also, you're defining the actual, you're defining something. Everything that's in this crate, I'm selling you.
What's that difference in the house?
Huh? Because you're essentially saying metaltalin. You're defining it as metaltalin, because if it's in the box, it's metaltalin. It's not connected to the ground. Everything in the box is metaltalin.
In the house could be nothing there.
Yeah, since it's clear that in the sack is only metaltalin. Now there's a very interesting thing based on this. The Mata Shimon, this is Mata Shimon is in Hagos Atur Eisvav. Mata Shimon Hagos Atur Eisches brings from the book Nechpa Bakesef. Choshen Mishpat Siman Chav Ches. Somebody sells to his friend everything that's inside a box or a basket. Now in the Nechpa Bakesef it says the word sipit. Samach Yud Pei Yud Tes. I had no idea what that was. I texted the Rabbi Chitrik from Turkey who was here. I told him this is a word. Do you have any idea what it is? He says, yeah, it's a basket in Turkish. Just sepet. It's a yud yud. That's how. That's because the Nechel Bakesef was in Turkey. Yeah, and it says, I'm selling you everything that's in the box except for the actual box. Except for the actual crate. You're buying everything that's in the crate. Now, the guy starts digging inside the crate, takes everything out, and he sees on the bottom there is a piece of cloth that's glued on to the bottom of the box. A piece of cloth is metaltalin, right? He rips it out. It belongs to him. Under it, he sees a whole stack of cash. It was hiding there. So it was worth a lot of money. He says you have to return the whole thing to it. No, you have to return what you found that's not included in the sale.
Because it's not in the airspace of like what's the...
He doesn't say the svara, but the svara that I think is something, I tell you everything that's in the box, when something is glued to the box, it's like part of it. It's like, it's not part of the sale, it's not movable from the box.
Yeah, 2 minute tires like that. The
Chibur is part of it, it becomes bottled to the thing, so you had no right to rip it out. Anyways, let's go back to the beginning of the Sif for a second. We said that there's we went through a discussion if there's a no, if something is a shar kotzev or not. If something has a shar, it doesn't have a shar. Only something which doesn't have a shar. If both know that there is a no, there's no a no. The Mishpat Shalom has about 6 pages on this topic. And his maskana is like this. First, a few maskanas that he puts. First, ledina nira. The Mishpat Shalom usually doesn't paskin, but ledina nira, that the muchza could say kimli, like those that hold that there's no ino. Whichever way, whoever's holding the thing, whoever is going to be the one that's losing, in these cases where there's a machlekes, if there is a no, or there is no ino. If there is a no, only a shar kotzel or not shar kotzel. If the chalal is a suffix or not, you can always say kimli. And he doesn't have to pay the difference. And he could keep the schayra. Obviously, when we're talking about something which doesn't have a shar, yeah, but that's the main machlekes. Now, if both don't know if there's a no or not, if both have no idea what's in there, so there's a shaila, like, machlekes shach and smeh. So he says like this, if the seller knows, for sure there's a no. If the seller doesn't know, he starts making this differentiation like this. It all boils down to how you could calculate it. If it's something which you could be meshayr with the umdana, you could calculate it. Something which potentially you could calculate if there's a no or not. So we say, the koine is specifically koine on the suffix, because he's able to be meshayr, and he's not bothering to be meshayr. He's gomar v'hikna al tzad ha-suffix. Gomar v'kana. The seller was gomar v'kana al tzad ha-suffix. He was full gmirus das to buy something that he knows he could research. He doesn't care to research it. And therefore, it's no ino. And yeah, therefore there's no ino. Hold on a second. No, something which you cannot calculate. Sorry. Something which you cannot calculate. I'm mixed up. Something which you cannot calculate, then obviously he bought it al tzad ha-suffix. Something which you could calculate, then we do say there's a no afterwards. Just similar to what I mentioned before from the Shevet HaLevi. Yeah, that there is, he says now, and even though there are chalkim, you could always say kimli, that there is no I know. Then he concludes and he says, this is all when there's no minig yidua in town. If there's a minig to buy things without looking, then we follow the minig. That solves the problem of the containers. So Mishpat Shalom says, the halacha, if there's a minig to buy things without counting, without opening, follow the minig. Weiter gefahren. Not always. Not always. Second. At the end of the siman, at the end of the sif, that Ramah brings the name of the Rivash, that this thing that Mesachik Bekuvia, that it's like a Mesachik Bekuvia, that it's not a kinyan. The same thing would apply with two people who exchange everything that belongs to them. Means one guy goes to the other guy and says, "You'll give me everything you own, I'll give you everything that I own." That's what the Ramah says. Yesh Emrim. The same thing applies over there in the name of the Rivash. That nobody's kind of anything. Comes this man, says, brings from the Trumas Hadeshin, that when two people make it kiyaskaf, you know what it is, yeah? To exchange everything, the Trumas Hadeshin says, you must fulfill it. And then he says, that the Darkei Moshe says, obviously the Rivash disagrees in Trumas Hadeshin. Now he mentions that Ramah in Siman Reish Gimel, and the end of Reish Gimel brings both opinions, and it's not Machriya. Over here, he only brings one opinion. Over here, he only brings the shit of the Rivash. But the Smeh says, don't convince yourself that the Ramah over here is Machriya, what he wasn't Machriya in Reish Gimel. In Reish Gimel, he had a suffix, he brings the two opinions, he had a suffix, whether by Tkiyaskaf you have to fulfill, by two the exchange everything you have to fulfill it or not, and the kinyan works or not. Over here he has the same suffix. So why does he only bring the shit of the Rivash? He wants to tell you that this halacha of the mechaber over here is a shtikul raya to the Rivash, nothing more than that. That's all he says. He says you don't prove from here that the Ramah suddenly became machriya 6 simanim later. And he says like this, even, and the Smith continues, even according to those that hold that when I sell everything in the house, it's not a kinyan, and it's an asmachta. Why? Because the seller knows, and the buyer doesn't know. Asmed l'shitosei. He says, when both, each one tells the other one, we'll exchange everything, neither of them knows what the other one has. Right? And neither of them has on what to be saimechan. And therefore, and therefore it should work according to the Ramah, because like both of them know. That's how the smell over here, l'shitase, both know. Then it's not. Therefore, it's clear. He says it's mashma. It's clear that Ramah doesn't pass like that, because if both don't know the Ramah holds on sachik bekuvia, it's not an asmachta. She hold the veil. It's not an asmachta. Comes the shach and says no. Tkiya skaf is not shayach asmachta bechlal. Tkiya skaf eliminates the concept of asmachta. Tkiya skaf works to cancel the asmachta, and therefore in Siman Reish Gimel, where there's a whole discussion about tkiya skaf, obviously the only question is how it's going. Only how it's going to how that you have to be mekayim it, according to Trumas Hadesha. Over here, there's no tkiya skaf, so you still have a shayla of asmachta. But over there, you do have a thing of asmachta.
In what way is tkiya skaf stronger than any other?
Oh, that's what Tzemach Tzedek discusses. That's what we're going to finish this year with. Now, come to has to be Sabban Akasha. What's there? Why? What kinyan happened over here? Yeah, by tkiya skaf. Tkiya skaf is a kinyan. So he says, Taka, that's what Trumas Hadeshin holds. Tkiya skaf is Taka a kinyan. Therefore, it works. Why? Because their intention was that each one is going to be marviach. Each one is going to gain something. Because a lot of things that I have in my house and you have in your house. So when I say we're going to exchange everything we have in the house, it doesn't mean that you're going to take my mattress, I'll take your mattress. It means that we're going to make an inventory of what I have and what you have. And things that you have and I don't have, you'll give me. Things that I have and you don't have, I'll give you. So each one of us knows a lot of what's there. So there is knowledge, both of them do know, so obviously there's no asmachta. Comes and he says that's what it was, yeah? And he says, the Shach says that is not relevant to here b'chlal. That's why you can't bring a raya from Siman Reish Gimel. Reish Gimel tkiya skaf, exchanging everything is not relevant to hear about the houses. So therefore you can't compare from there to here when it comes to tkiya skaf. Tkiya skaf creates a kinyan, and each one is going to transfer to the other one, therefore it works. Comes to Tzemach Tzedek and Piskei Dinim. In short, I'm going to say it's on page 197 in your white books, but you'll look at it afterwards, a short piece, that kinyan, it starts like this. Kinyan in the Bezdin Chashuv would definitely work for two people exchanging everything that they own. Why? He explains it. He says, obviously makes sense that kinyan would work because it eliminates all the asmachtas, right? Kinyan Bezdin Chashuv, probably me'achshav. So then he comes and says, if me'achshav works, kinyan me'achshav works for machlif kol nechasov, bezdin chashuv. Sorry, if kinyan bezdin chashuv works for machlif, for the two people who exchange everything, l'cha'ira me'achshav should also work for people exchanging everything. Why? Because me'achshav eliminates the asmachta. The only issue we have with two people exchanging everything, or selling a house with everything inside is only mitzvah asmachta, l'cha'ira kinyan me'achshav should work. Which is a stire, which doesn't make sense because the Beis Yosef writes in the name of based on the Rambam that me'achshav would not work in this case of someone who sells his whole house. By davar she'eino mesuyim, me'achshav doesn't work because there's nothing for the kinyan to be chalal. The problem with davar she'eino mesuyim is not the asmachta, it's the kinyan, chalois of the kinyan. The kinyan cannot be chalal on something which is not mesuyim. But based on the way the Shach understands it, the Tzemach Tzedek is medayek from the Shach, Bezdin Chashuv would work, so B'meila me'achshav would also work, and that's going to be a contradiction to what the Rambam, to the way the Beis Yosef understands the Rambam, that me'achshav would not work in this case. Because it's not an issue of asmachta, it's an issue of davar she'eino mesuyim. Therefore, how did the Shach change everything and just say, we take the Asmechtã out, we solve all the problems. That's not the problem. The problem you have here is not the Asmechtã. The Asmechtã is a small problem. The bigger problem you have, because Asmechtã you could solve. The bigger problem you have is that you don't have on what the kinyan is going to be chal. And therefore, even in front of a Beis Nechoshev, it's not going to work. Bais, kol ma sheyesh b'bais. Why? Because it's not Doshim, there's nothing for the kinyan to be chal. And it's just like by Asmechtã, it's just like an Asmechtã. It's not going to solve, it might solve one problem of Asmechtã, it's not going to solve what the kinyan is going to go on. And then Tzemach Tzedek says, no, but you have, it's you can't compare the two. He concludes basically, he doesn't say it so clearly, but he basically takes apart the Shach, says you can't compare the two things together. Someone who sells his whole house is much worse than a regular Asmechtã. Because of this reason, because you have a problem with a kinyan also. And therefore Me'achshav doesn't help. Maybe kinyan Beis Nechoshev also wouldn't help. And then and this is also in the context of Matashim, and also going to deal with it, but I'm not going to get into it now. I want to finish with one interesting thing from the Erech Shai. And with that I'm going to conclude the shir. The Erech Shai is talking about דיני, but it's really relevant to Siman Reish Chav Zayin. But the Erech Shai decided to stick it over here because I know it's discussed over here. So even though it's really not relevant to here, but Erech Shai felt it's connected to here, I'm going to discuss it here. What's the Erech Shai talking about? Something which, and this goes back to the whole antique discussion, this Erech Shai. With that I'm going to wrap it up. Even though I mentioned before the antiques, I'm going to go now finish with the Erech Shai. The Erech Shai disagrees with everything we learned until now. That's why I want to bring the Erech Shai. The Erech Shai says like this. Is there a no on something which doesn't have a shar kavua? Yeah? But every seller sells it kefim ma sheyochel lehoitzi min hakoine. He sells it for as much as he can squeeze out of the buyer. That's how he sells his products. He sees the guy, he looks at his nose, and he decides, Shuk. How much can I get out of this guy? Could I sell $500? Could I get $500 out of him for a cream? Could I get $2,000 out of him? Could I get $50 from him for a cream? And he says, and the Erech Shai explains like this, are you allowed to sell, basically rip off your clients, if the buyer would know that two blocks over he could buy it for half the price, he would go there and buy it? Are you allowed to rip him off? Is there a no? There's no shar kavua. Things are sold for whatever it is, but that guy two blocks down is going to look at your nose and sell it to you for $50 because he doesn't have such big asogas. You, on the other hand, are still good data asogas. You sold it for $2,000. Is there a no or not? And he says like this, an interesting diuk. He goes like this: the Magid Mishnah Hilchas Milva Perek Ches Halacha Aleph. Hilchas Milva, yeah. Wait, so he says the Magid Mishnah says, according to the Rambam, I'm not allowed to sell for a higher price if I'm selling on credit. Why? Because it's ribis. If I have something, this box, and the price of this box is $100, and I sell it to you $100 for cash, or if I write it down, I sell it to you for $120. And then you can pay in a month. That is mamash ribis, according to the Rambam. Why? I'm charging you an extra $20 for waiting the time. I'm telling us essentially the $100 you owe me now. Because you're paying me in a month, I'm charging you $120, which is the $100 you owe me plus 20 interest. That's awesome.
What's it when you take someone else's business or you take someone else's place?
Sagas Gvul? Sagas Gvul? Anem Abach Becharara?
Someone else's, you can't sell on this place because this person sells over here.
No, that's something else. That's Medina Sagas Gvul. I'm talking about ribis. So comes the Erech Shai and says, based on this Magid Mishnah, it's clear you're not allowed to do what you're not allowed to sell based on looking at somebody's nose when you know that the guy next door is going to sell it for cheaper. Why? It says like this: by metaltalin, we say there is a no, right? Even if there is no shar kotzuv, if you don't follow the BCS, if there's no shar kotzuv, there still is a no. Why? He says, if you're allowed to do a no, when you have something which does not have a shar kotzuv, you're allowed to sell for more. There's no no. then why, if I sell you this box for 120, it's also mitzad ribis? This doesn't have a shar kotzov. If it doesn't have a shar kotzov, I could sell it to you for 120 now. I could charge whatever price I want. The fact that the Rambam says, the Maggid Mishneh Paschals, that when something has a shar, something which does not have a shar kavur, and I sell it to you for more, he doesn't say that it's mutter, and he says it's also midin ribis, means three things. First of all, there is a no, even when there is a shar kotzov. Second of all, there's a shiloh of ribis. Yeah? So therefore, he paskins based on that. If you, the seller, knows that this product can be bought by this client in this town for cheaper, you're not allowed to sell them for more than that. And it's considered a no. And you can come back before you know. That's what Erech Shai for Zeis. The Maise Minig Yisrael is not to follow this Erech Shai. Fine, we'll conclude with this.